Hey, what's going on, my nerds and collectors alike? We are back again, taking a look at another figure from the Infinity Saga wave. This time we are taking a look at the Iron Man Mark III from the original Iron Man movie. Getting a closer look at the packaging here. Here we have the Infinity Saga logo, this time saying Iron Man Mark III. You do have an Avengers logo down here, but importantly, up at the top, you have your Marvel Studios Iron Man logo. This is from the Legends series. On the bottom of the packaging here, you have your warnings, barcodes, legalese, the fun stuff. Not for children under 3 years old. On this side of the packaging, as always, you have your mural. On the other side of the packaging, you have your other side of the mural, which always looks so fancy in the nice holographic tone. On the top of the box, we have Iron Man Mark III, Iron Man from Marvel Studios. On the back of the packaging here, you have the nice Iron Man poster, and it says, Tony Stark takes on the world's worst villains in the Mark III suit, a technological wonder equipped with a variety of stunning enhancements and upgrades. And of course, you also have warning, small parts, don't put it in your mouth. Alright, so let's crack this guy open and see what he's about. Alright, so here we have Tony Stark donning the Mark III armor out of the packaging. And before we continue, I do want to say that I am experiencing a couple of QC issues with this figure. The left hand, sadly, my wrist peg is loose. I hit it with heat, tried to see if I could tighten up that socket at all. Didn't do anything. I'm going to try some sticky tack first, see if that does anything about that. If that doesn't work, I do have some keys fix loose joints right here. Stuff works great on a lot of things, so might try to hit it with some of that. So wanted to point that out. I do have a big marbling mark right down the front of the figure, but honestly that doesn't bother me too much in particular. I just wanted to point out that it is a very noticeable, very large mark down there. It looks like it might be crack on the inside of the mold of the plasticking, or of the plastic there. Not sure what that's about. And I do have quite a bit of sloppy paint. So there's some slobs up there, right there, on the back, a couple of chips there. So, got another chip there. And I think I had something on the arm. Maybe. But yeah, just so you know, I do have some QC issues. Still do like the figure, but we will see what happens there. You did just see the accessory piece fall off. Don't worry, figure's not broken. We will get to that in a moment. But just gonna pop that back on right there, not a problem. Alright, so getting into details here. The helmet is beautifully done. I actually got hit with a big old wave of nostalgia seeing this helmet and this armor again. I have seen a couple of other reviewers take a look at this guy already, but having it in hand is kind of something different. Brought me right back to seeing this movie back in theaters when I was a kid. Definitely awesome to see Hasbro going back and redoing some armors. Getting into some detail here, we do have the cogs and gears of the under pieces of the armor there, picked out in some paint. We also have the rivets. The arc reactor has a printed paint feature that makes it appear to be glowing. So when you've got it out towards a distance, it looks like his chest's all lit up. Obviously, this armor was pretty tight and sleek. Hid quite a bit, but also was kind of bulky and not as refined as later armors. You get the nice panels on the back of the hands there. We will get to this in a moment, but these used to house weapons. On the inside there, you can see a little bit of detail of the mechanisms that would help the arm rotate. You got your nice rivets picked out everywhere. On the back, you also have your air brakes and another rivet picked out. Nice gold applied where it's not all sloppy like on mine. You do get sculpting on the back of the joints even, where he had that kind of rubber mesh that helped him move. You have the vents for the back of the air brakes here. rivets on the feet. And on the bottom here, his jet boosters do have peg holes for blast pieces, you know, the little effect pieces that a lot of Iron Men come with, but this one does not. On the helmet there, nice seams. Eyes are nice and clean on the inside. You get all the detail of the mechanisms around his mouth picked out. The color of the plastic is really nice. It still would be nice to see like a metallic paint, but it is an upgrade from the flat red plastics we used to get for Iron Man figures back from Hasbro. They definitely are trying to step it up when it comes to the Iron Man character. And it's going to be interesting to see if they go back and do any other armors. But now that we've looked at some details on this figure, let's go ahead and get into articulation. Starting at the head, it is on a dumbbell joint. So you can look up that far. I know that was a point of contention for a lot of people, but if you want to get them in a flight pose, that's about as much as you're going to get there. Can look down that far. And of course you do get your tilt, as well as side-to-side movement. But the biggest thing with these dumbbell joints is you can look in a direction and up at the same time, which you can't get with the hinge and ball joint. So pros and cons, I guess. Hasbro still needs to start working out on these. Would have been nice to see maybe a divot back here so that way he could lift his head more. We do actually have a small divot in the front there, which is interesting, so he can look down more. That kind of goes forward and allows him to look down more, which is interesting. The arms can rotate 360. And this shoulder piece is on a separate rubber ring just around the joint there. They go up 90 degrees. We do get a bicep swivel. Aha, there's some more slop that I was talking about. We do have double jointed elbows. My left is fairly tight, so doing some off-camera strength there. Your double jointed elbow can bend up that far, and of course, these are pinless. Now on the fisted hands, you can rotate 360. Like I said, mine is very, very loose. And you also have a hinge that moves horizontally. Not too much movement there. On the repulsor hands, when we get to those are not hinged, those are pre-posed. So the fists are the only hands that get hinges. Moving down to the diaphragm joint here, Tony Stark can crunch forward this far. He can crunch back that far, which that's pretty good. You do get side-to-side tilt. Very nice. Nice deep ball cut in there. And that will also be your source of swivel. But do be careful because the sculpt on the back here does like to clash with these pieces, so you may experience some chipping or some paint rub there. So just be aware of that when you're articulating. Down to the legs here. We do have a drop-down joint on an Iron Man, which is very nice to see. Hopefully we will go back on some other Iron Man figures and get updates with these as well. So you can drop that down, and with that drop-down joint, that allows the armor to shift, and Tony can kick 90 degrees. He can kick back roughly 45. And he can also kick out about 45. Shifting that back up there, we do have a thigh rotation. We do have double jointed knees, which allow Iron Man to kick his own ass. These are pinless as well, except for the top joint there, just because of the detail of the armor was kind of convenient for them to have a pin in. So that is intentional. That is a detail on the armor itself. They just used that to incorporate a pin. So that's kind of cool. Your ankles are a little bit hindered by the flaps, but he can move his ankle down that far. He cannot really move his ankle up just due to the sculpt. They did try to make these a little bit softer, but they're not quite soft enough. He does have ankle pivot, and there also is a rotation up at the top of the ankle joint there that will let you rotate your boot, kind of like a boot cut, just in that overlay. So he can move very, very well for an Iron Man figure. But now we all want to know, what does this Iron Man come with? What kind of cool gadgets, what kind of accessories does Tony Stark come equipped with? Well, first off, removing this helmet here, you also get a better look at that dumbbell joint. You do get an alternate head sculpt with his faceplate shifted up, which isn't the greatest Robert Downey Jr. head sculpt that we have, but it's definitely not terrible. It gets the point across, and it's a cool detail to have, just because back in these days, Tony didn't have fancy nanotech or extra technology that removed his helmet for him. He just lifted his faceplate and looked around, then took it off if he needed to, or just put the faceplate back down. So it's cool to have a Tony Stark head sculpt kind of smushed up in there. And just to quickly compare it with a couple of older head sculpts, here we have his partner in crime, James Rhodes, with his faceplate up, and as you can see, we have come quite a long way from these head sculpts. While this does look like Don Cheadle in the armor, you can definitely see that the paint and printing has come a long way. But speaking of paint and printing, we also have Pepper Potts in her armor with her plate lifted up. So that's just kind of cool to see that we get a couple of these extra options there. Now, as you saw previously, this arm piece does pop off. It is a soft plastic, and there are quite some cool little details in there. So you do get sculpted detail on that, as well as some nice sculpted detail on the actual port itself. And first things first, you get the shield that he used to stop Obadiah Stane from shooting him in the face during the final battle where his helmet was removed. I'm not actually sure the original purpose of this, but we all know it from that scene where he opens it up, spreads it out just to block a couple of bullets from hitting him in the head. And that is nicely detailed in there. You do have some very nice gunmetal and some red detail in the center there. Looking real cool. I like the armor detail of how it actually looks like the armor is shifted out of the way and spread out. And you also get the rockets that he used to destroy the tank in Gomera after he goes to avenge Jensen's death, and that tank shoots him out of the sky. You know, he pops those rockets, shoots back at the tank, destroys it, and walks away like a badass. Gotta have that slow walk with the explosion in the back in those days. Show how really cool you were. But that is those accessories. And for an Iron Man 1 figure, that's pretty cool to have, just small details there. Do be careful though, because especially this piece is kind of tiny. So don't want to lose that and then have a gap on your Iron Man, because that would look kind of weird. So make sure you keep track of those. And Tony Stark also comes with a set of repulsor hands here, which sadly, as cool as it is, you do have paint on the arc reactor in his palm there, and you do have some very nice detail of the armor plating and how that would shift around, and you got the armor caps on his fingers with the little joints in there and everything. And then you also have the plate shifted up so that way it looks right. You got the nice wrist padding and all of that cool stuff. Sadly, however, you do not get a peg hole for an effect piece like every other Iron Man we've received in the past couple of years has come with. So, just using some off-camera strength here to remove his hand. Mine was a little bit stuck. Nothing to worry about. But you simply just plug that on. And, yeah. So you've got his repulsor blast hand here. Now, do also be aware that the back of this plate does come very close to, I think it's actually almost touching the cover plate here, so do be careful of that. You might accidentally pop that off when you're swapping hands. And as cool as that looks, you do have the arc reactor kind of lit up, ready to blast look here. If it'll focus, there we go, come on. It would be nice to have the peg hold to, you know, port a blast effect on there, but it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and remove this hand here, put his fist back on. Now, one final thing I did want to test, just because I've seen some other people do it, is if you have the other Infinity War pack of the Iron Man Mark 85 and the Thanos 2-pack, that Tony Stark did come equipped with some Tony Stark heads. So here we have a nice clean Tony Stark look here. And we've got our beaten up Tony Stark. And that does pop right on. So with these neck pieces here, I'm going to go ahead and compare ball joint sizes if it'll let me. So this is the neck piece. Easiest way I've found to remove these is literally just stick the neck piece on and then just get your thumb underneath the chin, slowly pop it off from the back. Seems to pop off without an issue. What is interesting actually is, so these ball joints, the one on the right here, the flesh tone that actually comes with the neck piece, is a little bit bigger than this ball joint. However, these heads fit on just fine. They're not loose at all. There's an audible pop, and they're on there. So, kind of interesting. I think it's because that the Tony Stark heads are kind of a soft-ish plastic. So I think there's just enough give in there that they kind of squeeze around that. So that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and get him standing up right here. To be aware also that he is a little bit back heavy, at least on mine, he is a little bit back heavy. And I've also heard stories of the joints in the shoulders shearing off. Some people have used shock oil, some people have just tried heat and hot water. I'm not sure what works. Mine, thankfully, does not have that issue. But that is something to be aware of. Now his head does look just a little bit big still, because that Tony Stark head is pretty big even on the Mark 50, but it looks fantastic. There it is next to the helmet. So yeah, obviously he's not going to be able to fit his head into that helmet. And especially the face on the raised mask here. This actually looks a little bit tiny, so, you know, scaling issues. But clearly that's not the same. Nonetheless, looks really cool. But let's go ahead and get his mask back on here. Again, off the camera. Sorry, guys. Here is the Iron Man Mark III. And let's get into some comparisons, shall we? So, let's go ahead and begin with his surrogate son. Here we have the Iron Spider. And if you are so inclined, here he is next to the Mafex Homecoming Spider-Man. And just to go that one step further, even though these suits will never be seen together, and Tony had been passed away at this point, there he is with the SH Figuarts Integrated Suit Spider-Man. So there's a couple of those different comparisons there. Is looking pretty good. Let's get these guys out of here. Let's get him next to a professional colleague and Peter's new mentor, Doctor Strange. So as we can see, Iron Man in his original Mark III suit is a pretty bulky guy, makes him a good bit taller. But it is also nice to have a nice big Iron Man, because we never really got an Iron Man this size. The Iron Mans that we had received before were always kind of out of scale. So it's nice to see Hasbro coming back around. Started with the Mark 7, now we've got the Mark 85 and the Mark III, all in proper scale. Let's go ahead and get Doctor Strange out of here. Let's do Captain America. Obviously, this is the Endgame version, as well as Thor. But hey, get the big three together. Especially with this armor, you can see that the Walmart exclusive Endgame Captain America is kind of short. I think it's the thighs where they changed it, because these are the actual same leg pieces from the Infinity War Nomad Cap. I think we lose the height in the thighs there, because the arms and everything else do look proportional. I think it's the thighs that they cut down a little bit. But nonetheless, he does look pretty good together. Thor and Iron Man are actually roughly the same height. On the camera, it looks like he's just a little bit taller, but in person, these two actually look like they're roughly the same exact height. So that's interesting. But getting these two guys out of here. Let's start getting him with some Iron Family. Here we have him next to his wife, Pepper Potts. And here he is with his best buddy, James Rhodes, in the War Machine armor. Now, War Machine actually is a little bit smaller than Tony now. But, don't worry, Rhodey's about to get a height advantage, because here he is compared to the Iron Patriot from Avengers Endgame. Nice big armor back there. Let's go ahead and move Rhodes to this side here. Get Iron Patriot right up next to him there. So now you can see that Iron Patriot definitely is a large figure. He's a big boy. Let's go ahead and get the Iron Family out of here. And last but not least, here we have Tony's first armor as outing as Iron Man, next to his last armor and his outing as Iron Man. Kind of see from, this is where he came from, this is where he ended. It's cool to see the two compared there. Nice different advancements. Taking him away. Final thoughts here. Definitely still do love the figure. Do be aware there are QC issues. Not sure why there's so many on this particular figure. But at the same time, it's an armor that I think we all really wanted to get back to. And sadly, I know I do not have any of the first wave of the Iron Man movie figures back from 2008, simply because I actually ended up selling a lot of those figures off to get the new upgrade stuff, which is a hint at another video upcoming. Haha. But yeah, signing off here, I do still enjoy the purchase, despite the couple of flaws mine has. Definitely cool to see. Like the armor. Moves really well, has really nice articulation. Details, be it mine seem a little bit sloppy, do look really good. I'm glad Hasbro's going back and doing some of these armors. I'm hoping that we'll get some more. But yeah, signing off here before I go, I do want to say that this channel and all of its content is not for anybody under the ages of 13 years old. Stay safe, guys. Happy collecting.